Girl is fired for helping Keanu Reeves, but the next day she gets news that changes her life forever. What starts as a simple act of kindness spirals into a life-altering moment you won't see coming. Stay tuned to hear the incredible story behind this shocking twist. It all began on a crisp January morning in Los Angeles, the kind of day when the city felt alive with possibilities, even for someone like Anna Myers. Anna, a 28-year-old waitress at a small, cozy diner tucked away in the quieter parts of the city, had learned to find beauty in the little things, like the warmth of a freshly brewed cup of coffee or the fleeting smiles of the regulars she served. But life hadn't been kind to her lately. Rent was always a struggle, her hours at the diner barely covered her bills, and the dream she once had of becoming a writer seemed more distant with each passing day. She had learned to live with the weight of disappointment, masking it behind a polite smile as she carried tray after tray to customers who rarely noticed her. That day, as the sun dipped below the horizon and Anna prepared to close up for the evening, a man walked into the nearly empty diner. His presence was unassuming. A black baseball cap pulled low over his face, a well-worn leather jacket, and the kind of posture that spoke of someone carrying the world on his shoulders. She wouldn't have given him a second thought if it weren't for the exhaustion etched into his features. He slid into a booth in the far corner, as if trying to disappear. Anna approached him with her usual warmth. "What can I get for you tonight?" she asked. The man glanced up briefly, his face partially obscured by the cap, and murmured his order, a simple cup of coffee and a sandwich. Something about him struck her, though she couldn't quite place it. As the man finished his meal and left a quiet "thank you," Anna noticed something out of the corner of her eye. His wallet lay on the floor beneath the booth he had just vacated. Without thinking twice, she grabbed it and rushed outside into the brisk evening air, calling after him. "Sir, wait! You forgot this!" she called out, catching him just as he reached a modest black sedan. The man turned, startled, and for a moment his eyes softened as they met hers. He took the wallet from her outstretched hand, hesitating before he spoke. "You didn't look inside, did you?" Anna shook her head, laughing lightly. "Why would I?" The man seemed to study her for a moment, his lips curving into a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," he said quietly, before slipping into his car and driving off into the night. As Anna walked back into the diner, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something familiar about him. But she shrugged it off. After all, he was just another customer. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever. The next morning, Anna arrived at the diner as usual, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. The early hours were her favorite, the gentle hum of the coffee machine, the clink of plates being stacked, and the quiet anticipation before the breakfast rush. But today, something felt off. Her manager, Mr. Carter, a gruff man in his 50s with a permanent scowl etched on his face, called her into the back office. Anna's stomach tightened. She couldn't recall doing anything wrong, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Anna, we need to talk," he said, gesturing for her to sit. She perched nervously on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice careful. Carter leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I heard about what happened last night," he began. "You left the diner during your shift. Is that true?" Anna blinked in confusion. I stepped outside to return a customer's wallet. He left it under the booth. I didn't think—" "That's the problem," Carter interrupted sharply. "You didn't think. What if something had happened while you were out there? What if another customer needed you? This isn't a charity, Anna. It's a business." Her heart sank. "I was just trying to do the right thing," she said quietly, her voice trembling. Carter shook his head, his expression unmoved. "The right thing for the diner would have been staying at your post. I can't have employees who don't follow protocol. I'm sorry, Anna, but this is your last shift." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. For a moment, she couldn't speak. "You're firing me? Over this?" "I don't have a choice," Carter said, though his tone lacked any real sympathy. "You can collect your final paycheck on the way out." Anna felt the tears welling up, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. Without another word, she stood, grabbed her things, and walked out of the office. Her coworkers watched silently as she packed her few belongings into a small box, their pitying glances cutting deeper than any words. As she stepped out of the diner for what she knew would be the last time, the cold morning air stung her cheeks. She had always thought of herself as resilient, but this was too much. She replayed the events of the previous night in her mind, trying to understand how doing something kind could have led to this. By the time she reached her tiny apartment, her mind was spinning with worry. How would she pay her rent now? What would she do for work? The future felt uncertain, a dark void she couldn't see past. She curled up on her worn-out couch, clutching the small box of her belongings, and let the tears finally fall. The kindness she had shown to a stranger, a moment she hadn't thought twice about, had cost her everything, or so she thought. What Anna didn't know was that her act of selflessness was about to bring a change she could never have imagined. The next day dawned heavy with uncertainty. Anna sat at her small kitchen table, staring at a half-empty cup of coffee. Bills and eviction notices were scattered across the surface, their ominous presence adding weight to her already fragile spirit. She had spent the night scouring job boards, but every listing felt like a door slammed shut before she could even knock. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a text from her best friend, Lydia. "Anna, turn on the news. Now!" Frowning, Anna grabbed the remote and flipped on the TV. The bright, polished set of a morning news program filled the screen. A headline ran across the bottom. "Keanu Reeves shares touching story of anonymous stranger's kindness." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She turned up the volume, her breath catching in her throat. The anchor smiled warmly as she spoke. In a rare, candid moment, actor Keanu Reeves opened up about an encounter that restored his faith in humanity. Here's what he had to say. The screen cut to a clip of Keanu Reeves sitting in what appeared to be a press conference. He looked calm yet vulnerable, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Last night I was reminded of something important," Keanu began, his eyes briefly lowering before meeting the camera with quiet intensity. "I had just come from a difficult visit with someone very close to me, and I wasn't in a great place. But then a stranger did something that changed my entire night. Maybe more than that. She didn't know who I was. She didn't ask for anything. She simply helped me because it was the right thing to do." Anna's chest tightened as she listened, the pieces slowly falling into place. Could he be talking about her? "She returned my wallet," Keanu continued, "something most people might overlook. But it wasn't just the act itself. It was the way she did it. With kindness, without hesitation, and without expectation. In that moment, it reminded me that there's still so much good in the world, and I needed that reminder more than I can express." The clip ended, and the anchor's voice returned. Reeves went on to say he's hoping to find this anonymous Good Samaritan to thank her personally. He described her as a young woman who works at a small diner in Los Angeles. Social media is already buzzing with speculation about who she might be. Anna's phone buzzed again, this time with a flood of notifications. Messages from Lydia, old friends, even co-workers she hadn't spoken to in years, all said the same thing. "This has to be you." Her mind raced as she stared at the screen. The man she had helped, the quiet customer with the worn baseball cap, was Keanu Reeves. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. She felt a mix of emotions, shock, disbelief, and a strange flutter of hope. But as the news segment continued, her excitement gave way to doubt. The story was everywhere now. People were talking about her, or at least someone they thought was her. How could she face the attention? And even if Keanu found her, what would she say? That she was now unemployed because of her kindness. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Lydia. "Anna," Lydia exclaimed as soon as she picked up. "Why didn't you tell me about this? This is huge." "I didn't even know," Anna replied, her voice shaky. "I didn't recognize him. I just did what anyone would do." "Well, apparently not everyone would," Lydia said. "Keanu Reeves is looking for you. Do you realize what this could mean? You have to reach out." Anna's head spun. She wanted to feel excited, to believe this could be a turning point. But instead, all she felt was fear. What if she wasn't the person he imagined her to be? What if, when he saw her life, the bills, the eviction notices, the small apartment, he realized she wasn't someone worth remembering? She hung up with Lydia, her thoughts racing. The story that had seemed so distant on the TV screen was her story. Keanu Reeves was looking for her, and deep down, Anna knew that her life was about to change, whether she was ready or not. The following morning, Anna decided she needed to get out of her apartment, if only to clear her head. The walls felt like they were closing in on her, suffocating her with the weight of uncertainty. She bundled herself in her old coat, the one with fraying edges, and stepped into the crisp morning air. As she walked through the quiet streets of her neighborhood, her mind swirled with questions. Should she reach out to Keanu? Would it even matter? What would she say if they met again? She shook her head, trying to banish the thoughts. The idea of a second encounter with someone like him felt as far-fetched as her childhood dreams of being a best-selling author. Lost in thought, Anna barely noticed the black sedan that pulled up alongside her. The sound of a car door opening broke her reverie, and she turned, startled, as a familiar figure stepped out. It was him. Keanu Reeves stood just a few feet away, his dark eyes soft with recognition. He wore a simple jacket and jeans, his presence unassuming yet magnetic. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Anna's breath caught in her throat, and she felt rooted to the spot, her mind racing to process the surreal sight before her. "It's you," Keanu said finally, his voice quiet but filled with warmth. Anna blinked, her heart pounding. I didn't think you'd actually find me," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a small, sincere gesture that seemed to carry the weight of the moment. "I've been looking for you," he said. "I wasn't sure I would, but I couldn't stop trying. I just wanted to say, thank you." Anna felt a flush of embarrassment rising to her cheeks. "You don't have to thank me," she said quickly. "It wasn't a big deal. I just saw your wallet and, I don't know, it felt like the right thing to do." Keanu's expression softened further, and he took a small step closer. "It may not have felt like a big deal to you," he said, "but it was to me. That night I was in a difficult place. You reminded me that people can still be kind, even when they don't have to be. That meant more than I can explain." His words carried a quiet sincerity that left Anna momentarily speechless. She looked down, her fingers nervously clutching the edges of her coat. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu replied, his voice gentle. "But I'd like to do something for you if you'll let me. It's the least I can do." Anna's heart sank slightly at the mention of help. She thought about her overdue rent, her empty bank account, and the humiliation she felt at being in such a vulnerable position. "I don't think I can accept that," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return." Keanu smiled faintly. "I know you didn't. That's what makes it so important to me. This isn't about repayment, it's about kindness. You gave me hope when I needed it. Now I'd like to do the same for you." His words hit her like a gentle wave, washing over her doubts and insecurities. Still, the idea of accepting help from someone like him felt overwhelming. "I just don't want you to feel like you have to," she said, her voice faltering. Keanu's gaze met hers, steady and earnest. "I don't feel like I have to," he said simply. "I want to." Before Anna could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She hesitated, pulling it out to see a text from her landlord. "Rent overdue. Final warning." Her stomach churned and she quickly slipped the phone back into her pocket, hoping Keanu hadn't noticed. But he had. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern flickering in his dark eyes. Anna forced a smile, though her voice trembled as she replied, "Yeah, I'm fine." Keanu didn't press her, but his expression told her he saw through the facade. For a long moment they stood in silence, the cool morning air wrapping around them. Finally, he spoke again. "Anna," he said softly, his voice tinged with a quiet determination. "You helped me without expecting anything. I'd like to do the same for you. Can we at least talk about it?" There was something in his tone, a mixture of kindness and understanding, that made it impossible for Anna to refuse outright. She nodded hesitantly, her heart a mix of fear and gratitude. "Okay," she said finally. "We can talk about it." Keanu smiled, a genuine warmth lighting up his face. "Thank you," he said simply. As he gestured toward his car, Anna took a deep breath and followed him, her mind still spinning. This wasn't how she had imagined her day or her life turning out. But something about the way Keanu looked at her made her feel, for the first time in a long time, that maybe she wasn't so alone. As Anna slid into the passenger seat of Keanu's modest black sedan, a mix of nerves and disbelief swirled in her chest. The quiet hum of the car's engine filled the silence as they drove through the streets of Los Angeles. She couldn't help but glance at him, wondering how someone so famous could seem so normal. Keanu broke the silence first. "I know this must feel strange," he said, his tone calm and reassuring. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I just wanted to meet you and see if there's anything I can do to help." Anna let out a soft laugh, though it carried a trace of bitterness. "Help? I'm not sure anyone can help with what's going on in my life right now." Keanu glanced at her, his brow furrowing. "Do you want to talk about it?" She hesitated, the weight of her problems pressing down on her. But something about the genuine concern in his voice made her feel like she could trust him. "I lost my job," she admitted finally. "The manager fired me for stepping outside to return your wallet. I didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently it was to him." Keanu's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little harder. "He fired you for that?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "That doesn't seem fair." "It wasn't," Anna said, her voice dropping. "And now I'm behind on rent. My landlord's threatening eviction. I've been trying to find another job, but—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "It feels like I'm drowning and I don't even know where to start." Keanu stayed quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said softly. "It's not right that doing something kind has put you in this position." Anna shrugged, trying to mask her emotions. "It is what it is. Life's not exactly been a fairy tale for me, you know?" Keanu glanced at her again, his gaze steady. "Maybe not, but that doesn't mean it has to stay this way." She turned to him, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "I've been where you are," he said finally, "feeling like the world is stacked against you, like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough. But one thing I've learned is that you don't have to go through it alone. Sometimes it's okay to let someone help." Anna looked away, her emotions churning. She appreciated his words, but accepting help, especially from someone like him, felt like admitting defeat. "I don't want to be a charity case," she said quietly. You're not, Keanu said firmly. This isn't about charity. It's about recognizing someone who made a difference and wanting to pay it forward. Before she could respond, he pulled into the parking lot of a small cafe and turned off the engine. Let's grab a coffee, he said, offering her a small smile. Sometimes it helps to take a break and figure things out. Anna hesitated but eventually nodded, following him inside. The cafe was quiet, with a cozy atmosphere that immediately put her at ease. They found a corner table, and Keanu ordered 2 cups of coffee, insisting she pick whatever she wanted from the menu. As they sipped their drinks, Keanu leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest. Anna, I don't want to overstep, but I have the resources to help you, not just financially, but in other ways too. I could connect you with people who might have job opportunities. Or if you have something you've always wanted to do, I could help you take the first step. Anna stared at him, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his offer. Why would you do all of this for me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu's gaze softened. Because you reminded me that there are still good people in the world. That night I was struggling. I had just come from visiting my sister at the hospital. She's battling cancer, and I felt completely helpless. His voice caught slightly, but he pressed on. You didn't know any of that, but your kindness. It gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. And now I want to give some of that back to you. Anna's breath hitched as she listened, her heart aching for him. She hadn't realized the depth of the pain he'd been carrying. I'm so sorry about your sister, she said softly. I didn't know. Keanu smiled faintly. You couldn't have, but that's what made what you did even more meaningful. You didn't see a celebrity. You just saw a person who needed help. Anna looked down at her coffee, her mind racing. She wanted to say yes, to accept his help and let herself believe that things could get better. But a part of her still hesitated, unsure if she deserved the kindness he was offering. I don't know, she said finally, her voice trembling. It's hard for me to trust that things will work out. Keanu reached across the table, his hand resting lightly on hers. I get it, he said gently. But sometimes taking a leap of faith can lead to something amazing. You don't have to decide right now, but just know that I'm here and I want to help. Anna met his gaze, tears brimming in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope, not just because of his offer, but because someone truly saw her and cared enough to reach out. The cafe grew quieter as the morning rush tapered off, leaving Anna and Keanu sitting in a corner bathed in soft light. For a while, they both sipped their coffees in silence, letting the conversation settle. The weight of Keanu's words hung in the air, heavy yet comforting, like a blanket of understanding. Anna broke the silence first. You said your sister is in the hospital, she said hesitantly, her voice tinged with curiosity and concern. How is she doing? Keanu took a deep breath, his gaze dropping to the table. She's fighting, he said softly, his voice steady but laced with emotion. It's been a long battle, years, actually. Leukemia. She's been through treatments, remissions, and relapses, and now things aren't looking great. Anna's chest tightened at his words. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice trembling with sincerity. That must be so hard for both of you. It is, Keanu admitted, his dark eyes glistening as he looked up at her. But she's the strongest person I know. Even when things get really bad, she finds a way to smile, to stay hopeful. She keeps me grounded. That's why that night... He paused, his voice catching. That night I felt like I was losing her. I didn't know how I'd face it if I did. Anna swallowed the lump in her throat, her heart aching for him. I can't imagine how that feels, she said softly. But it sounds like she's lucky to have you by her side. Keanu gave her a faint smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I think it's the other way around. She's the one who keeps me going. For a moment they sat quietly, the weight of his story settling between them. Then Keanu looked at her, his expression shifting to one of curiosity. "What about you, Anna? What keeps you going?" The question caught her off guard. Anna hesitated, staring down at her coffee as if the answer might lie somewhere in its swirling surface. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I used to have dreams. Big ones. I wanted to be a writer, to tell stories that made people feel seen, like they weren't alone." Keanu leaned forward slightly, his attention fully on her. "What happened?" he asked gently. Anna let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Life happened. Bills, jobs, rejection letters, every excuse you can think of. I told myself I'd get back to it eventually, but I never did. And now it feels like that part of me is so far away. I don't know if I'll ever find it again." Keanu's gaze softened. "That part of you isn't gone," he said. "It's still there, waiting. Sometimes life gets in the way, but that doesn't mean it's too late." Anna looked at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You really think so?" "I know so," he replied, his voice steady and sure. "You have something special, Anna. I saw it the night you helped me, and I see it now." The sincerity in his words made her heart ache. She wanted to believe him, to believe that she could reclaim the dreams she had pushed aside. But the voice of doubt lingered in the back of her mind, whispering that it wasn't that simple. "Why do you care so much?" she asked suddenly, her voice cracking. "You barely know me." Keanu's expression grew even softer, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "Because you cared about me when you didn't have to," he said quietly. "You didn't see me as a celebrity or a stranger. You just saw a person who needed help, and you acted. That kind of kindness, it's rare, and it's worth fighting for." Anna felt her defenses crumbling, the walls she had built around herself slowly giving way. She blinked back tears, a mix of vulnerability and gratitude washing over her. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," Keanu replied. "Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Don't give up on yourself," he said. "Not on your dreams, not on the person you are. You've already made a difference in someone's life. You made a difference in mine. And that means you can do it again." The words hung in the air, wrapping around Anna like a lifeline. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as lost as she thought. The sun was beginning to rise higher in the sky, its warm light filtering through the cafe's windows. Anna stared at her coffee cup, her mind racing with everything Keanu had said. His offer to help was generous, more than generous, but it also terrified her. It felt like stepping off a cliff and hoping the net would appear. "I don't know if I can do this," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "Why not?" he asked gently. "What's holding you back?" Anna hesitated, struggling to put her feelings into words. "I've spent so long trying to keep my head above water," she admitted. "Taking care of myself, paying rent, keeping a roof over my head. It's all I've ever known. And now someone like you shows up, offering to fix everything. It feels overwhelming, like I don't deserve it." Keanu's expression didn't waver, his gaze steady and full of understanding. "I get that," he said. "But you're not giving yourself enough credit. You're not asking for help, Anna. I'm offering it because you've already earned it. What you did for me that night, it wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a reminder of how much good there is in the world. And that's worth something." She looked up at him, tears brimming in her eyes. "But what if I fail? What if I take this chance and everything falls apart? Keanu smiled faintly, leaning back in his chair. You might fail, he said simply. But isn't it worth trying? You've already faced so much and made it through. That takes strength, Anna. And if you've done it before, you can do it again. Anna thought about his words, the quiet confidence in his voice. He wasn't pushing her or trying to guilt her into accepting his help. He was simply reminding her of something she had forgotten, that she was capable of more than she realized. She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the edge of her coffee cup. Okay, she said finally, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. I'll do it. I'll take the chance. Keanu's face lit up with a smile, one that felt warm and genuine. I'm glad, he said. You won't regret it. But, Anna added quickly, holding up a hand, I don't want to just take your money or charity. I want to earn it. If you can help me find a job or connect me with people, I'll work for it. Keanu nodded, clearly respecting her determination. Deal, he said. I know a few people who might be able to help, and if you ever need more than that, you know where to find me. Anna felt a flicker of hope, small but steady, like a flame being reignited after years of darkness. She still didn't know how everything would turn out, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone. As they finished their coffee, Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small notebook. He scribbled something on a piece of paper and slid it across the table to her. What's this? Anna asked, picking it up. My number, he said with a small smile, in case you need anything or just want to talk. Anna stared at the number, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, she said softly, her voice full of emotion. For everything. You don't have to thank me, Keanu replied. Just promise me you'll give yourself the chance you deserve. I will, Anna said, a small smile breaking through the doubt that had clouded her for so long. As they left the cafe, Anna felt a sense of lightness she hadn't experienced in years. The future was still uncertain, but now it felt like it was filled with possibilities instead of obstacles. And as she walked back to her apartment, clutching the piece of paper with Keanu's number, she knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one she was finally ready to write. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change for Anna. True to his word, Keanu connected her with several people in his network, people who were not only kind but genuinely interested in helping her find a fresh start. Through one of these connections, Anna landed a position as a junior copywriter at a local publishing company, a job that reignited the creative spark she thought she had lost forever. The first time she sat at her new desk, staring at a blank screen, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. But as her fingers hovered over the keyboard, something inside her shifted. Words began to flow, tentative at first but growing stronger with each sentence. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to reclaim her dream of writing, one small step at a time. Her financial situation also began to stabilize. With her first paycheck, Anna paid off the overdue rent and started catching up on her bills. The dark cloud of uncertainty that had hung over her for so long began to lift, replaced by a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in years. Despite her newfound stability, Anna never forgot where her journey had started, or the person who had played such a pivotal role in it. She and Keanu stayed in touch, exchanging occasional texts and phone calls. Sometimes they talked about her progress at work, other times about his sister's health, which had started to show signs of improvement thanks to a new treatment plan. One afternoon, as she walked home from work, Anna's phone buzzed. It was a message from Keanu. Hey, thought you'd like to know. My sister's been responding well to treatment. She says hi and she'd love to meet you sometime. Anna smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. She replied quickly, That's amazing news. I'd love to meet her too. As she slipped her phone back into her pocket, she looked up at the sky, the sunset painting it in hues of orange and pink. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to feel proud of how far she had come, not just because of the opportunities she had been given, but because she had taken the leap to embrace them. A few weeks later, Keanu invited Anna to visit the hospital where his sister was receiving treatment. Nervously, Anna arrived with a small bouquet of flowers, unsure of what to expect. When she walked into the room, she was greeted by a warm smile from Keanu's sister, a woman whose frailty was overshadowed by her vibrant energy. "You must be Anna," she said, her voice soft but strong. "Keanu's told me so much about you. Thank you for being the light he needed that night." Anna felt a lump in her throat as she stepped forward. "I think he was the one who gave me light," she replied honestly. The three of them spent the afternoon together, sharing stories and laughter. For Anna, it was a moment of connection that reminded her of the power of kindness, not just in grand gestures, but in the small, quiet ways it could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she could never have imagined. As the months passed, Anna's life continued to blossom. She started writing on the side, working on a book she had dreamed of creating for years. And though the future still held its uncertainties, she approached it with a newfound confidence, knowing she had the strength to face whatever came her way. One evening, as she sat at her desk, finishing up a chapter of her manuscript, her phone buzzed again. It was another message from Keanu. "Don't forget, the world needs your stories. Keep going." Anna smiled, her heart full. She typed a quick reply. "I will. Thank you for believing in me." And as she closed her laptop, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. She wouldn't let fear or doubt hold her back anymore. The kindness she had given and received had sparked something inside her that could never be extinguished. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time, like and subscribe for more inspiring videos.